December 22nd, 1944. Bastogne, Belgium. Snow covers the streets, the forests, the roads that no longer lead anywhere. Inside the town, the 101st Airborne Division is surrounded. German armor controls every approach. Artillery fires fall without warning. Radio reports arrive incomplete, delayed, sometimes wrong. And in a command post lit by weak lamps and cigarette smoke, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe listens to a situation report that quietly answers a question no one wants to ask. Ammunition stocks will last 3 more days at current rates. Medical supplies are already critically low. Plasma, morphine, surgical tools are being rationed. The weather has blocked air resupply for 2 full days. Third Army is reported to be moving north, but its exact position is uncertain. Its arrival time is unknown. The roads between Bastogne and any possible relief are controlled by German armor. When the report ends, McAuliffe does not ask how long until Patton arrives. Instead, he asks something far more dangerous. What happens if he doesn't? That single question changes everything. What follows is not written down in neat records. There are no clean transcripts or formal minutes. What survives are fragments, staff recollections, partial orders, post-war reconstructions. Together, they reveal something rarely discussed. While history remembers Bastogne for heroic resistance and dramatic relief, the commanders inside the town were preparing for something darker. They were preparing for Plan B, the plan for what the 101st Airborne would do if relief failed. Before we go any further, if you appreciate deep, untold World War II stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. These stories go beyond the headlines and into the decisions that actually shaped history. By the afternoon of December 22nd, McAuliffe orders what his staff calls a sustainability assessment. The purpose is cold and clinical. Determine how long the division can continue fighting under current conditions with no resupply. The first briefing comes from artillery. 105mm ammunition is being consumed at a rate of roughly 1,200 rounds per day. Current stockpiles total fewer than 5,000 rounds. At that rate, artillery support ends in 4 days. If German attacks intensify, that timeline collapses to 48 hours. Small arms ammunition looks better, but only on paper. Rifles and machine guns can last about a week at current usage, but no one believes current usage will hold. If the Germans launch a coordinated assault, consumption will spike immediately. Ammunition is not a fixed clock. It accelerates towards zero under pressure. Next comes the medical briefing. Casualties since December 20th already exceed 400. Medical facilities are improvised. Church basements, schoolhouses, cellars. They are functioning only because German artillery has been limited by weather. If the skies clear, casualty rates are expected to triple. Supplies are already insufficient. The division surgeon estimates that within 72 hours, medical care will shift from surgery to basic wound treatment only. After that, even pain management becomes uncertain. Food is not the problem. Rations can last weeks if necessary. Fuel is. Vehicles have enough fuel for about 5 days of defensive operations. After that, artillery cannot reposition. Ambulances cannot move. Command mobility collapses. Fuel can be conserved, but doing so freezes the defense in place, exactly what German armor is designed to exploit. McAuliffe asks for a consolidated timeline. The answer is stark. Without resupply, the division can fight effectively for about 5 days. After that, it does not collapse, but it loses the ability to conduct active defense. It becomes static, wounded, and increasingly helpless. And that leads to the real question. What happens after day 5? The staff identifies 3 options. Continue defending until ammunition runs out. Attempt a breakout through German lines. Or negotiate surrender. No decision is made. But McAuliffe gives a clear order. Develop full plans for the first 2 options. The third will be considered only if nothing else remains. The siege is no longer just a battle. It is now a countdown. December 23rd, 1944 begins with no relief in sight. Snow still covers the sky. Radios crackle with incomplete reports. German pressure continues along the perimeter, probing, testing, waiting. Inside Bastogne, the staff work does not slow. If anything, it becomes more focused. This is the day contingency planning becomes real. Lieutenant Colonel H. W. Kinnard, the division's operations officer, is tasked with developing what is quietly labeled Plan Exodus. The name itself is telling. This is not a counterattack. It is not a maneuver for victory. It is a plan for survival if the position becomes impossible to hold. From the beginning, Kinnard makes one thing clear. A breakout cannot include the entire division. 10,000 men cannot move at night through winter terrain, without fuel, without artillery, and expect to succeed. If a breakout happens, it will involve only a portion of the force. The first decision is brutal in its simplicity. Who goes and who stays? The breakout force must be mobile. That means infantry, not artillery. It means men who can march long distances in freezing conditions. It means leaving behind vehicles, heavy weapons, and anyone who cannot walk. Kinnard's staff calculates movement rates based on terrain, weather, and darkness. 2 miles per hour is considered optimistic. At that pace, reaching Third Army lines might take 8 to 10 hours, assuming no contact. Any German resistance would slow or stop the movement entirely. 2 infantry regiments are designated as the breakout force. The remaining regiment, along with artillery and support units, will stay behind to hold Bastogne for as long as possible. Their role is to cover the withdrawal and, if necessary, surrender once the breakout force has cleared the perimeter. No one uses the word abandon, but everyone understands what it means. The next decision is direction. Roads are ruled out immediately. German armor controls them. The breakout force will move cross-country, navigating by compass, through forests and fields buried under snow. The destination is vague by necessity. Intelligence suggests Third Army may be roughly 15 miles south, but that information is fragmentary and possibly outdated. The breakout force will move south and hope to find friendly lines before being detected. Then comes the question of equipment. The answer is almost nothing. Each man will carry his weapon, ammunition, and 1 day of rations. No packs, no spare clothing, no sleeping gear. Speed and endurance are the only priorities. Artillery pieces will be destroyed. Vehicles will be disabled. Fuel will be drained. Anything that cannot move is left behind. That evening, Kinnard presents the plan to McAuliffe. It is short, direct, and terrifying. McAuliffe reads it carefully and asks one question. Casualty estimates. Kinnard does not soften the answer. 30 to 50% losses during the breakout itself. Possibly higher if the Germans detect the movement early. McAuliffe nods, then asks about the men who remain. Kinnard answers without hesitation. They will surrender once the breakout force is clear. They have no other option. McAuliffe does not approve the plan. Not yet. He orders it refined, updated daily, and kept ready. The plan will exist as a contingency, nothing more, unless circumstances force his hand. It is a decision he hopes never to make. While the operations staff plans movement and routes, the medical staff faces a different nightmare. By December 23rd, the number of wounded exceeds 600. The division surgeon, Major Douglas Davidson, conducts an assessment he will later describe as the hardest task of his career. He categorizes the wounded into 3 groups. Those who can walk and might join a breakout. Those who need evacuation to survive. And those who will not survive movement at all. The numbers are unforgiving. Only about 200 wounded are ambulatory. 300 require hospitalization. 100 are critically wounded and need constant care. Plan Exodus assumes only the first group can move. The rest will be left behind. Davidson raises the issue with McAuliffe. The moral weight is immense. Leaving wounded without evacuation or adequate supplies raises ethical and legal questions. McAuliffe listens, then responds with quiet clarity. If the choice is between losing half the division or losing all of it, the choice, however terrible, is unavoidable. Davidson is authorized to prepare a medical plan for continued siege without resupply. That plan is triage at scale. Resources will be focused on those most likely to survive. Pain relief will be prioritized when treatment is no longer possible. Surgical intervention will be limited to life-saving procedures only. Some wounded will receive comfort care and nothing more. The plan does not say it plainly, but the meaning is clear. By the end of December 23rd, Bastogne is no longer just holding. It is preparing to choose between impossible outcomes. December 24th, 1944 arrives with no miracle. The sky remains heavy. Clouds hang low, blocking aircraft and hope in equal measure. German pressure continues around Bastogne's perimeter, not in a single overwhelming assault, but in constant probing attacks designed to wear the defenders down. Inside the town, the sense of time tightening becomes unavoidable. The 5-day sustainability window calculated on December 22nd is now shrinking fast. The medical plan moves from theory to preparation. Major Davidson and his staff reorganize every improvised hospital space in Bastogne. Supplies are sorted into 2 categories: what can be carried if movement becomes necessary, and what will remain behind. Most surgical equipment falls into the second category. There will be no way to transport operating tables, sterilization gear, or large quantities of plasma during a breakout. What remains portable is limited to bandages, morphine, and a small number of surgical kits. The wounded are reassessed again. Men who could walk yesterday are checked carefully. Some are removed from the ambulatory list as swelling and infection worsen. Others insist they can move, even when medical judgment says otherwise. The staff makes quiet decisions, knowing that false optimism could doom a breakout force. These conversations happen behind closed doors. There are no announcements, no speeches, only whispered explanations and long silences. At the same time, the operations staff continues refining Plan Exodus. Routes are adjusted based on updated intelligence. German unit locations are plotted on maps that are already outdated by the time the ink dries. Assembly areas are selected near the southern perimeter. These locations are explained to subordinate units as defensive staging points. Only a handful of officers understand their real purpose. McAuliffe receives intelligence updates throughout the day. Third Army is fighting hard to the south, but making slower progress than hoped. German resistance is heavier than expected. Reports conflict. Some suggest American forces are within 15 miles. Others place them farther away. Weather continues to disrupt airdrops. A few supply bundles land inside Bastogne, but not nearly enough to change the overall picture. Ammunition conservation orders are issued quietly. Artillery fire is restricted to essential missions only. That afternoon, McAuliffe convenes his regimental commanders and key staff officers. The purpose of the meeting is not inspiration. It is decision-making. He presents the updated timelines. Under current consumption, artillery ammunition will be critically low by December 26th. If German attacks intensify, that point arrives sooner. Medical capacity will be overwhelmed by the same date. After that, treatment becomes palliative rather than curative. McAuliffe asks each regimental commander a direct question. Can your unit execute a breakout if ordered? The answers are honest and restrained. Yes, they can move. Yes, they can fight. But success depends on surprise, weather, a German reaction. One commander notes that this would not be a conventional operation. It would be a survival movement under fire. Success would not mean defeating the enemy. It would mean getting some men through. The distinction matters. It reframes expectations. A breakout would not save the division. It would save part of it. Decision criteria are established. Ammunition levels become the primary trigger. When artillery stocks fall below 200 rounds, enough for one major engagement, effective defense ends. Medical overload is a secondary trigger. When wounded can no longer be treated at survivable levels, the cost of staying rises exponentially. If relief appears imminent, the division holds. If relief becomes implausible and triggers are reached, McAuliffe will authorize Plan Exodus himself. No authority is delegated. The decision will be his alone. Before the meeting ends, McAuliffe gives final guidance. Prepare your units quietly. Do not discuss contingency plans beyond essential personnel. Morale remains strong, but morale depends on belief. Belief that relief is coming. If soldiers begin to think they are being abandoned, discipline and cohesion could collapse before any plan is executed. December 25th arrives. Christmas Day. There are no celebrations. Only routine, fire missions, patrols, and medical care. Ammunition is redistributed subtly. Units designated for breakout are prioritized. Artillery fire drops to a minimum. Supply caches are established near the southern edge of the perimeter. Officially, they're defensive stockpiles. In reality, they are positioned along potential breakout routes. Medical staff continues preparations. Ambulatory wounded are told they may need to move with little notice. No explanations are offered. The implication is enough. Some write letters. Others say nothing. The staff allows it. By the night of December 25th, Bastogne is holding, but only just. The division is no longer simply waiting to be relieved. It is ready to act if relief fails. Every calculation has been made. Every moral compromise has been acknowledged. Nothing remains theoretical. All that is left is time. December 26th, 1944 begins with uncertainty that cuts deeper than fear. Overnight, German artillery has intensified. Shells fall closer to command posts. Telephone lines go dead and are repaired again and again. Patrol reports suggest enemy armor shifting positions south of the town, but whether this movement signals an attack or a withdrawal is impossible to know. In Bastogne, every hour without confirmation of relief tightens the noose. Inside division headquarters, McAuliffe studies the updated reports. Ammunition counts are lower than projected. Conservation measures have helped, but only slightly. Artillery stocks are approaching the critical threshold. Medical capacity is strained to the edge. The wounded now number well over 700. Infection rates are rising. Morphine is nearly gone. Surgical procedures have been reduced to only those that can save a life immediately. Anything else is postponed, knowing that postponement often means death. The breakout plan is no longer an abstract exercise. Staff officers begin making final adjustments. Assembly times are refined. Routes are simplified to reduce confusion in darkness. Code words are selected to initiate movement without alerting the enemy. Junior officers receive fragmentary orders that tell them where to move and when, but not why. Experienced men understand anyway. Night movement, light loads, southern perimeter. These details speak for themselves. Supply caches placed days earlier are checked and repositioned slightly. Ammunition, rations, and medical supplies are stacked in small, hidden clusters where breakout units can reach them quickly. Vehicles not required for immediate defense are quietly drained of fuel and disabled, a precaution that looks like maintenance but is not. Artillery crews prepare demolition charges for their guns. No one speaks about it openly. Everyone understands what it means. McAuliffe meets privately with his senior commanders. The question now is not whether a breakout is possible. It is whether waiting longer increases or decreases the chances of survival. Every hour brings more wounded. Every hour reduces ammunition. But every hour also increases the chance that Third Army might break through. Acting too early risks unnecessary loss. Acting too late risks catastrophe. Reports arrive that American forces are engaged heavily south of Bastogne. Some suggest they're within 10 miles. Others say progress has slowed again. Air activity increases briefly as the weather breaks, just enough to allow limited drops. A few bundles land inside the perimeter. They help, but not enough. The siege clock does not reset. It only pauses. Medical staff finalize their preparations for the worst. Group assignments among the wounded are confirmed. Medical officers and medics who will remain behind are identified. They are told plainly that if a breakout occurs, they will stay with the wounded. Their role will be care, comfort, and negotiation of surrender when the time comes. No one refuses. No one asks to be relieved. They understand their duty, even if history may never remember it. Throughout the day, McAuliffe resists pressure from some officers to act immediately. A breakout is irreversible. Once begun, there is no returning to defensive positions. If Third Army arrives while the division is in motion, confusion and disaster could follow. The decision must be timed perfectly or not at all. By late afternoon, new intelligence arrives. American forces have broken through German resistance south of Bastogne. The reports are cautious but consistent. Contact has not yet been made, but the distance appears to be closing rapidly. McAuliffe orders all units to maintain readiness but holds execution authority. The breakout plan remains on the table, but it stays there. As night falls, German fire slackens slightly. Patrols report unfamiliar sounds to the south. Engines. Movement. The possibility that relief is finally approaching becomes real, but still unconfirmed. McAuliffe refuses to assume success until it is visible, undeniable. The division waits through the night in a strange state between action and restraint. Weapons are cleaned. Packs are staged but not issued. Wounded lie quietly, some knowing exactly what tomorrow might bring. Others sense it without words. The command has done everything possible. Every calculation has been made. Every terrible option prepared for. Just before dawn, confirmation arrives. Elements of Third Army have reached the outskirts of Bastogne. Contact is established. The siege is not fully lifted yet, but the worst outcome has been avoided. Plan Exodus will not be executed, but the fact that it was ready matters. Because until the moment relief arrived, the 101st Airborne had accepted the possibility that survival might depend not on rescue, but on leaving behind everything they could not carry. They were prepared to abandon guns, vehicles, wounded comrades, and the town itself, if necessary. They did not rely on hope alone. They relied on planning, calculation, and the willingness to face decisions no one wants to face. December 26th, 1944 does not end with celebration. It ends with confirmation. Patton's armor has reached Bastogne. The road is open. The siege is broken. The danger that had shaped every calculation of the past 4 days begins to recede. But what does not disappear is the knowledge of how close the division came to a very different ending. The official history of Bastogne remembers courage, resilience, and relief. What it rarely emphasizes is that relief was never assumed. Until the moment contact was physically established, the 101st Airborne operated on the belief that rescue might fail. Every decision made inside Bastogne between December 22nd and December 26th reflects that assumption. The division did not simply wait. It prepared for outcomes that history prefers not to examine. Plan Exodus is never executed, but it is real. It is complete. It is ready. Routes are planned. Units are assigned. Equipment is marked for destruction. Wounded are categorized. Medical ethics are bent under the weight of survival math. Commanders accept that saving part of the division may require abandoning the rest. These are not heroic decisions. They are necessary ones. McAuliffe never gives the order to break out. He never has to. But leadership is not measured only by the orders given. It is measured by the orders prepared and never used. The ability to face the worst possibility without denial is what allows a command to survive when optimism fails. The medical staff's preparations may be the least remembered and most sobering part of the siege. Doctors and medics prepared to remain behind with men they knew would likely die. They organized pain relief, knowing it would outlast curative care. They prepared to inform wounded soldiers that evacuation was impossible. These actions never appear in victory narratives, but without them, survival would have been chaos rather than discipline. The soldiers in the line never fully knew how close they came to abandoning Bastogne. That ignorance was intentional. Morale is a weapon, and it was protected. What they did know was that ammunition was short, that wounded filled every shelter, and that relief had not yet arrived. They held anyway. But behind that holding line was a command that had already decided what would happen if holding became impossible. When Third Army finally broke through, it did more than save a division. It erased the need for choices that would have haunted every survivor. The wounded were evacuated. Artillery guns were not destroyed. Men were not ordered to march into the night, knowing half would not return. History moved on to the next chapter, and planned exodus faded into obscurity. Yet its existence matters, because Bastogne was not held by faith alone. It was held by calculation, discipline, and the willingness to confront unacceptable outcomes before they became unavoidable. The 101st Airborne did not survive because they believed help would come. They survived because they prepared for the possibility that it would not. That is the part of the story rarely told. Wars are often remembered for dramatic moments. The shouted reply, the sudden relief, the triumphant breakthrough. What is less visible are the quiet rooms where officers calculate when ammunition runs out, where doctors decide who can be saved, and where commanders prepare to sacrifice part of their force so that something survives. At Bastogne, those rooms existed. Those conversations happened. And the fact that they were never acted upon does not make them less real. It makes them more important, because they reveal what disciplined command looks like when hope is uncertain. If this story gave you a new perspective on Bastogne and the Battle of the Bulge, leave a comment below and tell us what part surprised you the most. Share this video with someone who thinks they already know this battle, and let them see the decisions history usually leaves out. And if you want more untold World War II stories like this one, where planning matters as much as bravery, make sure you're subscribed.